Do not be deceived. You are being used. Every hour you work, every ounce of your energy, every morning you drag yourself out of bed to do what you despise. It is fuel, but not for you. It is fuel for the wealthy. It is the current that powers their empires, while you are handed just enough to keep you alive until the next week. Look around. The evidence is everywhere. Men work themselves into graves, and yet the masters of industry grow fatter, freer, more untouchable. The laborer grows tired, old, forgotten. The wealthy grow powerful. And the tragedy is this: most men never even notice. They call it security. They call it a good living, when in truth it is slavery with softer chains. You may think yourself free, but ask, can you stop working tomorrow and remain secure? Can you walk away without fear of bills, debts, hunger? If you cannot, then you are not free. You are bound. You are a servant in a system designed to keep you moving day after day as fuel for the engines of those who already hold the power. But here is the secret the wealthy will never confess. Every slave has within him the power to break the chains. Every man can choose definiteness, faith, imagination, persistence, and when he does, he no longer feeds another man's fire. He builds his own. The wealthy are terrified you might discover this, for the moment you do, their fuel is gone. I will not reveal the key yet, for if I gave it to you in a single word, you would scoff at its simplicity. Instead, I will lead you step by step until the truth becomes undeniable. You were never born to be fuel. You were born to be fire. Man imagines himself free because no iron shackles weigh upon his wrists. Yet his hours are counted, his strength measured, his thoughts directed by another's command. He rises at a bell, works at another's pace, and rests only when permitted. This is slavery of the subtlest kind, the exchange of one's very life for bread. What is the wage? It is a portion of a man's time, a fraction of his power, a calculated sum sufficient only to keep him alive so he may return tomorrow. Wages rarely lift a man into independence. They are designed to maintain his dependence. The laborer receives coins while the master reaps fortunes, and the laborer calls this arrangement security. Security is the cruelest illusion. It is a promise whispered to keep men docile. What security has the man who must beg for employment each week? What security has he whose bread stops the moment his labor ceases? True security comes only through mastery of one's own mind, definiteness of purpose, and control over one's own income. Fear of poverty is the master's whip. It drives men to accept any wage, endure any treatment, and surrender their dreams. The man chained by fear of poverty will not dare to think of independence. He will reason that a small wage is safer than no wage, that obedience is wiser than risk. In this way, the fear of poverty forges invisible chains. But the whip is not singular. Fear of criticism lashes men into conformity. They dread the scorn of neighbors, the mockery of family, more than they dread a wasted life. They suppress ambition because another might laugh. Thus the wealthy need not whip them with rods. They are whipped by their own fear of ridicule. Ill health looms as another chain. Men imagine themselves too weak, too fragile, too uncertain to strike boldly for freedom. Fear of sickness makes them cling to routine and deny themselves adventure. They labor until their bodies break, then blame life, never realizing that their own fear hastened the decay. Old age terrifies the wage earner. He works not for abundance, but for the faint hope of survival when his body grows weary. He invests years in servitude, yet reaches old age with little to show. Fear of old age paralyzes the will to venture when strength is at its height. Thus, many die rich in experience of labor, but poor in the fruits of independence. Loss of love chains men to habits unworthy of them. Fear of losing affection or approval makes them live small lives. They bow to customs, follow paths not of their choosing, surrender visions that might upset companions. And in the end, love itself withers, for no affection thrives in the soil of fear. The final fear is death itself. Men shrink from bold undertakings, whispering, well, what if I fail? What if I die? Yet all men must die. Better to perish pursuing freedom than to live 1,000 deaths in servitude. Fear of death keeps men silent, docile, obedient, useful fuel for the engines of the wealthy. Consider the coal miner beneath Carnegie's empire. He descended into darkness before dawn, returned after nightfall, lungs blackened, body bent. His name was forgotten, but the steel mills he fed rose into monuments of fortune. The master's wealth was carved from the lifeblood of nameless men. Who lived freer, the millionaire or the miner? The answer is plain. Think of the factory hands in Rockefeller's refineries. They labored until exhaustion, yet their children inherited only poverty, while his descendants inherited empires. Their hours of toil became his palaces, their sweat his dominion. They exchanged the strength of their youth for pennies and were discarded in old age. This is the fate of those who live as fuel. The tragedy is not only that men toil for another's gain, it is that they accept it as natural. Hypnotic rhythm seizes them. They rise, they labor, they rest, they repeat, until the routine itself becomes a prison stronger than steel. Their minds forget freedom because their bodies have grown accustomed to chains. Even advancement is a deception. The man promoted imagines himself free, yet he remains under command. His wage grows, but so does his dependence. The more he earns, the more he spends. The more he spends, the more he must continue. Advancement merely polishes the chains, it does not remove them. The ox in the field knows his fate. He pulls the plow, he is fed just enough, and he dies in harness. Man believes himself superior, yet he too is fed only enough to return each day. He too labors for another's harvest. He too dies in harness. The ox is blameless. Man is guilty, for man possesses imagination and choice. What then is the remedy? First, recognition. A man must see the chains before he may break them. He must admit that wages are not freedom, that security is a deception, that fear has been his master. Once he sees, he can choose to rebel, not against society, but against his own servitude of thought. Affirm with me, I will no longer live for wages alone. I will rise beyond fear. I was born to command, speak it daily until your mind believes it. For belief will stir desire, desire will summon faith, and faith will lead you to action. No master can enslave the man who thinks his own thoughts, chooses his own aim, and persists in its attainment. The wealthy know this. That is why they encourage fear, obedience, and routine. The moment you awaken, their engines lose power, for their fuel was always your labor, your fear, your drift. Awaken, therefore. Do not mistake the wage for wealth, the routine for freedom, the promise of security for safety. Begin now to count the true cost of your days. Every hour sold without purpose is an hour enslaved. Every thought unclaimed is a link in your chain. Every fear unchallenged is a whip upon your back. Say instead, I am no longer fuel. I will command my own fire. My life is mine to spend with definiteness and courage. This is the first step from slavery to mastery, to see the chains, to name them, and to declare that they shall bind you no longer. Drifting is the silent destroyer of men. It does not strike with violence, but with softness. A man drifts when he fails to decide, when he postpones, when he accepts the course others set for him. Drifting is not idleness. It is motion without direction, labor without purpose, existence without destiny. The drifter believes himself busy. He rises, he works, he rests, he repeats. Yet his days are governed by others. His mind follows paths of least resistance. He obeys tradition, he mimics neighbors, he accepts beliefs never tested by reason. The drifter moves always, but toward nothing of his own choosing. Schools prepare men to drift. They reward obedience and punish initiative. A boy who questions is silenced. A boy who repeats is praised. Thus, from youth, men are trained not to think independently, but to conform. By the time he leaves the classroom, the drifter has already surrendered the right to chart his own course. Parents, too, often plant the seeds of drifting. They advise, play it safe, do not take risks, find steady work. With good intent, they direct the child toward security, yet in truth, they guide him into servitude. For what is steady work if not dependence? And what is safety if not submission to fear? Tradition chains the drifter. He marries when custom says, spends as others spend, believes what the majority believes. He fears ridicule more than failure, so he never departs from the crowd. He drifts with it, though it lead to poverty, though it lead to despair. Thus millions perish poor, not because they lacked power, but because they lacked purpose. I once held a dialogue with the devil, and he confessed, my greatest weapon is drifting. He explained that once a man neglects to fix his purpose, hypnotic rhythm seizes him. His habits grow rigid. His courage grows soft. His imagination atrophies. A man who drifts a year may drift a lifetime, unless awakened by shock or truth. Hypnotic rhythm is merciless. It takes small acts of surrender, postponed decisions, neglected aims, and weaves them into iron laws. The drifter wakes at the same hour, performs the same tasks, eats the same meals, thinks the same thoughts. He ceases to live by choice. He exists by habit. He is alive, yet no longer living. Consider the thousands who labored in the steel mills. Strong men capable of enterprise, yet they drifted. They accepted wages, repeated the same movements, and surrendered the chance to think independently. Their power fed the empire of Carnegie, yet their own families inherited only poverty. Their lives became fuel because they drifted without aim. Contrast these with Charles Schwab. He too entered the mills, but he refused to drift. He set a definite purpose to rise, to learn, to command. He seized opportunities others ignored, made decisions where others delayed, and advanced until he led U.S. Steel itself. Same mills, same opportunities, different destiny. The difference was definiteness. Drifting kills ambition. It whispers, there is time enough. It persuades men to wait until conditions improve, until opportunities are perfect, until courage arrives. But the perfect day never comes. Meanwhile, the years slip away. The drifter awakens old, poor, forgotten, his life spent in waiting. The cost of drifting is not only poverty, it is the death of individuality. The drifter ceases to think his own thoughts. He repeats what others declare. He fears new ideas, clings to old dogmas, resists change. His mind becomes a prison decorated with the slogans of the crowd. He believes he is free, yet he has surrendered his will. The remedy for drifting is simple, though not easy. Definiteness of purpose. A man must declare, this is my aim, this is my mission, this I will achieve. Until such a declaration is made, no progress can be real. Without definiteness, energy is scattered, time is wasted, opportunities pass unseen. Write your purpose, put it to paper, refuse to sleep until it is declared. Read it daily, aloud, until your subconscious accepts it as fact. Let no day begin without recalling it, no night end without reviewing it. This is the anchor against drifting, the rudder against the currents of habit. Affirm with me, I am not a drifter. I am awake. I claim definiteness of purpose, and I act with it daily. Speak it until it shapes your thought, until thought shapes your action, until action shapes your destiny. For he who is definite becomes a master. He who drifts remains a slave. Mark this truth. The wealthy dread the man of definiteness. They can use the drifter, for he asks no questions, takes orders, and obeys routine. But they cannot use the definite man, for he thinks, he questions, he creates. He ceases to be fuel for another's fire. He builds a fire of his own. Drifting is not rest. It is death in slow motion. Men think they have years, but drifting consumes them while they slumber. Awaken now, before hypnotic rhythm hardens your chains. Declare your purpose and act with decision. For without definiteness, you are not living. You are merely existing for another's gain. No chain is so heavy that it cannot be melted by the fire of burning desire. No prison is so strong that it cannot be shattered by the will of a man who demands more from life than mere survival. Desire is the starting point of all riches. Without it, man drifts as fuel for others. With it, he becomes the master of his own destiny. Weak wishes are useless. They are soft winds that stir nothing. Men wish for wealth, for freedom, for ease, but they do not desire it with the intensity that commands life itself. A wish whispers, "It would be nice." A burning desire cries, "I must have it. I will have it. Nothing shall turn me aside." Only such desire has power to break chains. Consider Edwin C. Barnes. He was not content with the thought of earning a wage under Edison. He desired to stand beside him as partner. That desire burned so fiercely that he boarded a freight train penniless, traveled to Orange, and announced himself at Edison's door. He had no money, no status, only desire, and it opened the door to fortune. For years he labored in obscurity, yet in his mind he was already Edison's partner. Desire kept him steadfast. When opportunity came, Edison's new dictating machine that others refused to sell, Barnes seized it. His burning desire transformed ridicule into riches. The slogan, "Made by Edison, installed by Barnes," was born. Desire made it fact. Contrast him with the thousands in Edison's factories. They too wished for comfort. They too labored faithfully. Yet they never desired more than wages. Their wishes were mild, their aims indefinite. They left no mark. Barnes, by burning desire, claimed a place in history, while the multitude vanished nameless. Desire must be definite. "I want wealth" is vague. "I will earn $50,000 within 5 years through my own business" is definite. The mind responds to precision. Life answers the man who knows what he wants. The drifter says, "Someday, somehow." The master says, "This is my aim. This is my time. This is my demand." Desire must be intensified until it becomes obsession. It must occupy the thoughts by day and rule the dreams by night. You must breathe it, speak it, act it, until the subconscious mind accepts it as fact. Only then will infinite intelligence conspire to open doors, attract allies, and reveal opportunities that the indifferent eye never sees. Edison himself illustrates this law. He failed thousands of times in search of the electric light. Yet each failure was fuel to his desire. He declared, "I have not failed. I have found thousands of ways that will not work." His desire would not die. And because it burned beyond ridicule, beyond defeat, the world was illuminated. The wealthy guard this truth carefully. They whisper to the masses, "Be content. Do not desire too much. Be grateful for small wages," for they know that once a man's desire is inflamed, he ceases to be fuel. He ceases to be useful to them. He claims his own fire. They cannot enslave the man who burns with a definite purpose. Fan your desire daily. Write your aim on paper. Read it aloud morning and night. Picture yourself already in possession of it. Feel the emotions of triumph. Speak as though it is done. Let no day pass without feeding the flame. For the mind, when impressed repeatedly, grows to believe. Belief breeds action. Action conquers fear. Fear flees before burning desire. Affirm, "What I desire, I demand of life." I persist until desire becomes fact. I do not wish, I burn. I do not drift, I demand. My desire commands, and life obeys. Repeat until it becomes part of your very nature. For every great fortune, every towering success began with a burning desire that would not be denied. Look around history. Carnegie desired steel dominance. Rockefeller desired oil mastery. Ford desired to give every man a car. Schwab desired leadership beyond measure. None of these men were born free of chains. They broke them with desire so fierce it consumed doubt and turned visions into empires. What they did, you may do also. Desire will require price. You will sacrifice ease, endure ridicule, work while others rest. You will be tested. But every sacrifice is fuel for your fire. Every ridicule is proof that your desire has grown beyond mediocrity. The weak will laugh, the fearful will scorn, but the determined will prevail. For life yields only to those who demand with burning desire. Faith is the eternal elixir which gives life, power, and action to the impulse of thought. Without faith, desire withers like a seed cast upon barren rock. With faith, even the smallest desire grows into a mighty oak. The wealthy understand this law, and they guard it carefully, for faith is the only force that can lift the common man beyond servitude. Men often think of faith as something mystical or reserved for saints. Yet I tell you, faith is practical. It is a state of mind. It is belief applied to desire until the subconscious accepts it as truth. It is the process by which a man commands his inner world and thereby commands the outer world. Faith is not chance, but cultivated certainty. Without faith, a man doubts his every aim. He begins a venture, then retreats at the first sign of resistance. He speaks words of defeat. I cannot, I dare not, I might fail. These thoughts take root, and the subconscious obeys, bringing forth circumstances to match. Thus he creates poverty by expecting it, weakness by imagining it, and slavery by fearing freedom. But with faith, a man dares the impossible. He sees riches where others see ruin, opportunity where others see danger. His belief fuels persistence. His persistence conquers ridicule, and his victory seems miraculous. Yet it is not miracle. It is the natural law of faith. Life always yields to the man who believes with definiteness and acts with conviction. Henry Ford illustrates this power. When he announced his vision of a motor car for the multitude, experts laughed. They declared it impossible to manufacture cheaply. They scorned his lack of education, mocked his ignorance of engineering theory. But Ford possessed faith. He believed in his vision with such intensity that ridicule became powerless. Faith gave him empire. Ford's faith did not rest in idle dreaming. It translated into decisions, into persistence, into action. He surrounded himself with men who shared his belief. He reinvested failures into experiments. Each setback was fuel for stronger conviction. While the doubters scoffed, Ford moved forward, and the very world bent to his faith. The car became the chariot of the age. Andrew Carnegie also knew this power. He saw in steel what others dismissed as too expensive, too unreliable, too uncertain, yet he believed. His faith in the future of steel guided every investment, every decision. He borrowed courage from his conviction and multiplied it among his partners. That faith turned mills of iron into monuments of fortune. The law is eternal. Fear and faith cannot dwell together. They are enemies. Where one lives, the other must perish. Fear whispers of poverty, ridicule, and death. Faith declares abundance, courage, and immortality of purpose. Choose daily which master shall rule you, for if you allow fear to lodge within your heart, faith flees. If you cultivate faith, fear dissolves. Men often ask, how can I build faith when my circumstances are poor? The answer is repetition. Faith is born of repeated affirmation, spoken with emotion, impressed upon the subconscious. Speak aloud your definite purpose, morning and night. See it, feel it, believe it. Each repetition plants seed within the soil of the mind until belief blooms into certainty. Say aloud, I believe in my purpose. I believe in my destiny. I believe in my ability to command riches. Do not whisper it timidly. Speak it with burning emotion, for emotion is the fuel of faith. A dry phrase repeated without feeling is lifeless. But words spoken with passion engrave themselves upon the subconscious and summon infinite intelligence to your aid. Consider the clergyman who once earned meager sums, barely enough to survive. He adopted this principle of faith, affirming daily that his service would yield abundance. His belief transformed his actions. He spoke with greater power, drew larger crowds, commanded greater respect. In a few years, his income rose to $75,000 annually. Faith made the difference. Or reflect upon the tailor Arthur Nash of Cincinnati. His business faced bankruptcy, yet he believed against all evidence that honesty and faith could revive it. He treated workers as partners, declared faith in fair dealing, and persisted despite mockery. Newspapers spread his story, customers returned, and his near-dead business flourished into fortune. Faith turned ashes into abundance. Even governments have harnessed faith. During the World War, President Wilson spoke words of faith into the hearts of soldiers and citizens. Bonds were sold, armies raised, sacrifices made, all because men believed in the cause. Faith multiplied courage, silenced fear, and supplied the power to endure hardship. Without it, no war could have been won. Faith is transferable. One man's conviction ignites another's courage. Carnegie's faith inspired Schwab. Edison's faith inspired Barnes. Rockefeller's faith inspired his partners. But fear, too, is contagious. The man who speaks constantly of loss, of danger, of defeat, spreads paralysis among his fellows. Guard your tongue, for it may plant either fear or faith in those who hear you. The subconscious mind is the workshop of this power. It accepts whatever you impress upon it, whether faith or fear, truth or falsehood. If you speak defeat, it creates defeat. If you speak victory, it creates victory. You cannot deceive it with idle hopes. It responds to repeated conviction. Therefore, command it daily with faith-filled affirmations. Do not expect faith to come in an instant. It is cultivated as a farmer cultivates crops. Daily thought, daily speech, daily emotion water the seed. The harvest appears in its season. The man who quits after a week of affirmations has not planted deeply enough. Persist until belief becomes natural, until doubt seems absurd, until faith is as certain as the sunrise. Faith also attracts allies. Men are drawn to the one who believes firmly in his aim. Investors supply money, workers lend energy, partners share risks, all because they sense conviction. But the man who doubts himself attracts no one. He inspires only ridicule and hesitation. Faith is magnetic. It gathers power. Doubt is repellent. It scatters opportunity. Fear cripples imagination. It paints visions of failure, paralyzes decision, weakens persistence. Faith empowers imagination. It creates vivid pictures of triumph, fuels bold decisions, and sustains unyielding persistence. Choose faith, and your imagination will serve you. Allow fear, and your imagination will enslave you. Every fortune is first imagined, and imagination obeys either fear or faith. Affirm now, I believe in my purpose. I believe in my destiny. I believe in my power. My faith commands infinite intelligence. My faith conquers fear. My faith creates my fortune. Repeat until it is carved upon your soul. For when faith is fixed, nothing can withstand you. Mountains bow, obstacles vanish, riches yield, and freedom is assured. The wealthy guard this secret because it is the foundation of their independence. They know that the moment the masses believe in their own power, the engines of servitude will falter. They whisper instead, be realistic. Do not hope for more. Accept your lot. But those words are poison. Cast them out. Believe, and you will rise above their dominion. Faith is not luxury, it is necessity. It is not mystery, it is law. Every man who has risen from obscurity to fortune has done so by faith. Every man who remains bound by wages has failed in faith. The difference between slave and master, drifter and leader, pauper and magnate is not strength nor schooling, but faith. Therefore I command you, build faith deliberately. Feed it daily with affirmation. Strengthen it with emotion. Guard it against fear. Express it in action. Share it with allies. Let it guide your imagination, direct your decisions, and sustain your persistence. For faith is the bridge from desire to riches, from slavery to freedom, from fuel to fire. Imagination is the workshop of the mind. Within it are forged the plans by which desire is clothed in form and faith becomes action. All riches begin as a thought, all achievements as an image first seen in the mind's eye. The drifter neglects this gift and thus remains fuel. The master employs it and becomes fire, shaping the world to his vision. Two forms of imagination must be understood. Synthetic imagination rearranges existing ideas into new patterns. Creative imagination opens the channel to infinite intelligence, receiving flashes of inspiration beyond reason. Both are vital. The wealthy employ them consciously. The poor neglect them, using imagination only to picture fear, debt, and defeat. Thus they forge chains for themselves. Consider John D. Rockefeller. When others transported oil in barrels upon wagons, he imagined vast pipelines stretching across states. His contemporaries scoffed, calling it folly, too expensive, impractical. Yet his imagination saw beyond their sight. He built pipelines, reduced costs, and conquered markets. What others dismissed, his imagination made real, and an empire was born. Think of Andrew Carnegie. He imagined not merely producing steel, but controlling every link, mines, mills, transportation, and distribution. This vertical integration was derided as impossible, too complex for one man to master. Yet he saw it clearly in his mind before it stood in reality. That image guided his action, and steel transformed the world under his command. Imagination, like muscle, strengthens with use. The man who never dreams bold visions finds his imagination withered. The man who dares daily to picture greatness develops a faculty so powerful that no circumstance can confine him. Use imagination deliberately. Sit quietly each day and picture yourself living your definite aim. See it, feel it, believe it until it stirs action. But beware, for imagination may enslave as well as liberate. The man who imagines poverty invites it. The man who envisions illness hastens it. The man who constantly rehearses failure in his mind ensures defeat. Imagination obeys your commands, whether noble or ignoble. Guard it, direct it. Never allow idle fears to dominate its workshop. Edison is a monument to this law. When inventing the phonograph, the electric light, and countless devices, he relied on imagination to conceive what had never existed. Thousands of failures did not matter, for in his mind the finished product already lived. His imagination guided his persistence until thought became reality, and the world was illuminated. Charles Schwab, too, wielded imagination. He saw new methods of organizing steel production, new ways of inspiring men to labor with zeal, new strategies of expanding markets. His imagination gave him advantage over countless others equally intelligent, equally strong, but lacking vision. Imagination drew him from obscurity to the pinnacle of industry. The masses use imagination unconsciously, and therein lies their downfall. They picture scarcity. They rehearse complaints. They imagine themselves helpless. These pictures take root and manifest. The master uses imagination consciously, deliberately forming pictures of wealth, freedom, power, and harmony. He dwells upon them until the subconscious accepts them as commands, summoning unseen forces to fulfill them. Daily exercise is required. Take your definite chief aim and picture it as though already achieved. Do not merely think of it vaguely. See yourself in possession of it. If it is wealth, picture the home, the accounts, the independence. If it is influence, see the crowds listening to your words. If it is invention, See the product in use. Picture vividly. Emotion must be joined with vision. A cold picture fades quickly. But if you see your aim with passion, if you feel joy, pride, gratitude, excitement, it engraves itself upon the subconscious. Emotion is the ink by which imagination writes upon the soul. The more intense the feeling, the faster the image takes root, and the sooner it blossoms into reality. Infinite intelligence communicates through the imagination. Many men have received flashes of inspiration, ideas appearing suddenly, solutions materializing in moments of quiet. These are not accidents. They are messages, impressions delivered to the receptive mind. The man who cultivates imagination, who quiets himself and listens, becomes a receiver of ideas greater than his own experience. Imagination inspires allies. Men are drawn to one who paints vivid pictures of the future. Investors supply money. Workers supply effort. Partners supply courage, all because imagination inspires belief. The man without vision inspires no one. He may labor diligently, but he gathers no following. The man of imagination commands loyalty, for he shows others a future worth striving toward. Imagination also fuels persistence. When obstacles arise, the picture of the goal sustains the will. Edison endured thousands of failures because his imagination held the image of light. Ford pressed forward despite ridicule because his imagination showed him cars for every family. Carnegie persisted because his imagination saw steel girding the cities of the future. Affirm now, I create riches first in my mind. My imagination builds the empire I command. I see it, I feel it, I live it within before it appears without. My imagination is the workshop of my destiny. Repeat this daily until your visions grow clearer, stronger, more commanding. For he who controls imagination controls the future. Beware the drifter's imagination. It is filled with pictures not of his own making. Newspapers, gossip, fears of neighbors, tales of failure, all pour into his mind, painting images of defeat. He wonders why poverty follows him, not realizing he rehearsed it in imagination. Protect your mind. Be the artist of your own pictures, not the victim of others. Faith and imagination are twin powers. Faith gives life to the pictures of imagination. Imagination gives form to the conviction of faith. Desire is the spark, faith the fuel, imagination the form. Together they build empires. Separate them, and they wither. Unite them, and no force on earth can stop the man who employs them. Look again at Rockefeller. His imagination conceived pipelines. His faith assured their success. His desire burned until he acted. The result was fortune beyond measure. Every empire, every invention, every fortune follows the same sequence: desire, faith, imagination, decision, persistence, organized planning, and action. All begin in imagination's workshop. You may believe yourself poor in imagination. This is false. All men possess it, but most allow it to lie dormant. Awaken it. Read biographies of great men. Study inventions. Walk in nature. Let the mind play upon new combinations. Ask boldly, how can I improve? What can I create? What must I become? Such questions stir imagination to life. Affirm again, I see my riches clearly. I feel them deeply. I act as though they are mine, and life responds. I am master of my imagination, and my imagination makes me master of my destiny. For these are not idle words, but commands to the subconscious. And what the subconscious accepts, infinite intelligence supplies. Therefore, I say, cease living as fuel, burning your life away for another's fire. Begin to live as flame, creating heat and light of your own. Desire is the spark, faith is the force, but imagination shapes the fire. Without it, you labor endlessly for wages. With it, you labor upon your own fortune. Imagination is your escape from servitude. Indecision is the habit of slaves. It is the slow poison that drains a man's power until he becomes incapable of command. The drifter always waits. He waits for more money. He waits for clearer signs. He waits for the permission of others. While he waits, opportunity departs, and life is squandered. The wealthy know this. Decision is their weapon of mastery. Decision is the act of claiming power. It is thought made flesh, vision made law, faith made action. Men of destiny decide quickly, firmly, and rarely alter their course without reason. Men of mediocrity postpone, hesitate, and waver until circumstances dictate their fate. Every great fortune, every towering empire rests upon decisions once scorned by the crowd. Abraham Lincoln offers example. The Union trembled, advisors urged compromise, critics demanded surrender. But Lincoln decided the nation must endure, slavery must end. His decision was not welcomed. It was ridiculed, resisted, reviled. Yet it stood. That single decision preserved a people and altered the course of history. One man's firmness outweighed millions of doubters. Charles Schwab provides another lesson. While others in the mills obeyed orders and waited for instructions, Schwab made decisions. He spoke boldly, offered new methods, seized opportunities. Carnegie saw in him the quality few possess, decisiveness. It was this trait, more than intelligence or labor, that lifted him to command of U.S. Steel. Decision marked him for leadership. Contrast the indecisive man. He weighs every path, questions every step, consults every neighbor, and finally chooses none. He drifts. He obeys. He returns to labor for another's gain. Fear of criticism restrains him. Fear of failure paralyzes him. Fear of poverty chains him. Thus he remains fuel, burning his life for wages, never kindling a fire of his own. History proves that men of decision rise regardless of schooling or station. Henry Ford left little formal education, but he decided firmly upon his aim. A car for the multitude. Experts said impossible. Newspapers mocked. Financiers scoffed. Yet Ford decided, and his decision endured. While others debated, he acted, and the world rolled forward upon wheels. Indecision breeds fear. The man who wavers begins to imagine every obstacle greater than it is. He invents excuses, magnifies dangers, and persuades himself of defeat before the battle begins. Decision breeds courage. The man who commits boldly finds strength to persist, allies to assist, and opportunities to appear. Decision itself is a force that draws power. The wealthy decide swiftly and change slowly. The poor decide slowly and change swiftly. One builds empires, the other builds excuses. Study the biographies of every great leader, and you will find quickness to decide. Study the lives of failures, and you will find hesitation, postponement, and surrender. This is no accident. It is law. Do not mistake rashness for decision. Decision is not reckless impulse, but firm resolve after thought. Once chosen, it becomes command. Delay is the enemy, but so too is endless change. The man who alters course with every opinion is slave to the crowd. The man who holds to his own decision bends the crowd to his will. Consider Thomas Edison. When pursuing the electric light, advisors urged him to stop, to save money, to seek other ventures. Edison decided he would succeed. Thousands of failures did not alter his decision. His firmness transformed ridicule into triumph. The world remembers his light, but few recall the multitude who counseled him to quit. Decision liberates a man from fear of criticism. Most men obey the crowd because they dread laughter. They dress, speak, and live by another's standards. The decisive man speaks his will, stands his ground, and commands respect, even from those who oppose him. Better to be ridiculed for decision than pitied for hesitation. The man who waits for perfect timing dies waiting. Conditions will never be ideal. The drifter says, I will act when the market is better, when the children are grown, when I have more money. But life offers no guarantees. The decisive man says, I act now. I build as I go. I trust in my faith and persistence. Affirm, I decide boldly. I decide firmly. I decide daily. My decision makes me free. Repeat until hesitation flees and action becomes natural. For indecision is habit, but so too is decisiveness. Practice daily decisions. Train the will as a soldier trains the arm. Each choice strengthens the faculty until decision becomes instinct and mastery your second nature. Observe Andrew Carnegie again. His fortune was not mere luck. At each step he decided firmly. On steel, on partners, on expansion. He bore criticism, endured risk, and acted while others debated. His quickness to seize opportunities, his firmness to hold decisions, multiplied his fortune. Had he hesitated, the empire would belong to another. Decision is the turning point between desire and reality. Desire without decision remains dream. Faith without decision remains thought. Imagination without decision remains picture. But once decision is made, all forces align. Persistence fuels action. Allies appear. Plans crystallize. The world shifts around the man who has decided upon his aim and refuses to retreat. The wealthy guard this truth. They encourage hesitation in the masses. Be careful. Do not risk. Wait for security. These are lies designed to keep you bound. They know that once a man decides firmly upon freedom, he becomes useless as fuel. He withdraws his labor from their engines and kindles his own fire. Indecision is a subtle whip. It persuades you that you are cautious, prudent, wise. In truth, you are shackled. True wisdom is to decide after thought, then act with firmness. The man who hesitates is lost, not because fate is cruel, but because opportunity will not linger. Life rewards decision, punishes delay. Write your definite chief aim and decide today to pursue it. Do not wait for more money, more courage, or more favorable winds. Decide now. Say, I decide to claim my aim. I decide to act. I decide to command my destiny. The moment you decide, chains weaken. The moment you act, chains break. Let us recall again, Lincoln preserved a nation. Ford revolutionized industry. Edison lit the world. Carnegie built an empire. Schwab rose from obscurity. All through decision. Their intelligence differed, their resources varied, but their decisiveness was constant. The world bends not to the cautious, but to the decisive. Therefore I charge you, cease drifting, cease postponing, cease waiting for approval. Decide today with definiteness upon your chief aim. Hold to it with firmness. Let ridicule roar. Let fear whisper. Let obstacles rise. They cannot defeat the man who has decided. Decision is the blade that severs slavery, the whip that commands destiny. Persistence is the sustained effort necessary to induce faith and transform desire into reality. It is the hammer that breaks through stone, the river that carves valleys, the force that converts dream into fact. Without persistence, desire weakens, faith withers, decision falters. With persistence, even the impossible bends, for life yields only to the man who refuses to quit. Most men surrender at the first resistance. They mistake temporary defeat for permanent failure. They try once, meet difficulty, and retreat into comfort. They excuse themselves with talk of bad timing or unfair chances. But the truth is plain. They lacked persistence. The wealthy know this well. They persist until doors open, until opportunities yield, until triumph is secured. R.U. Darby's uncle illustrates this lesson. Struck by gold fever, he drilled with zeal until he found ore. Excited, he borrowed money, purchased machinery, and began extracting wealth. Yet after a few shipments, the vein disappeared. Discouraged, he quit and sold his machinery for a fraction. The buyer consulted an engineer, drilled 3 feet further, and struck millions. Darby learned the lesson. Though he lost a fortune, he carried persistence into the insurance business. Remembering that he stopped 3 feet from gold, He vowed never again to quit when men said no. In time, he sold millions in policies, ranking among the greatest. Persistence turned loss into fortune. The quitters remained poor, while persistence paid richly. Edison offers another example. Thousands of experiments failed before the electric light burned. Lesser men mocked, investors doubted, assistants despaired, but Edison persisted. He declared each failure a step forward, each defeat a discovery of what would not work. His persistence illuminated the world. Without it, his name would be forgotten among failed inventors. Henry Ford also endured ridicule, lawsuits, and setbacks. Factories burned, competitors schemed, newspapers laughed at his crazy car. Yet Ford persisted. He held to his decision, pressed through obstacles, rebuilt after fire, outlasted rivals. His persistence birthed the automobile for the multitude. Without it, he would have died obscure, another dreamer defeated by resistance. Persistence requires willpower. Desire initiates, faith sustains, decision directs, but only persistence carries through to completion. The world is full of half-built dreams, unfinished projects, abandoned ventures, all victims of weak persistence. The master differs only in that he continues where others stop. He endures ridicule, defeats, delays, and persists until life itself surrenders. Temporary defeat is a trickster. It tests men, separating the weak from the strong. The quitter says, "It cannot be done." The persistent man says, "I will find the way." The quitter loses time, dignity, and hope. The persistent man gains wisdom, strength, and victory. The trickster yields only to persistence, never to hesitation or fear. Persistence must be cultivated. It is not a gift bestowed at birth. It is a habit built daily by refusing to quit. Each time you continue when weary, you strengthen persistence. Each time you press forward when others retreat, you forge the steel of your will. Small acts of endurance accumulate until persistence becomes part of your nature. Affirm, "I will persist until I succeed. I cannot be defeated, for I will not quit. I endure ridicule. I embrace difficulty. I conquer delay, for persistence is my power." Speak these words daily, especially when weary, for words repeated with emotion engrave themselves upon the subconscious, and the subconscious drives action beyond conscious strength. Persistence requires definite purpose. No man persists long at vague wishes. But when desire burns with intensity and aim is clear, persistence follows naturally. Barnes persisted with Edison because his aim was definite. Schwab persisted in steel because his aim was clear. Carnegie persisted because his vision consumed him. Vagueness breeds weakness. Definiteness fuels endurance. Persistence is often lonely. Few encourage bold ventures. Most will counsel caution, urge retreat, laugh at failure, yet ridicule is proof of originality. Opposition is proof of movement. The man who persists must learn to draw strength from within, to rely upon faith rather than applause, to endure misunderstanding until success silences critics. Infinite intelligence seems to favor the persistent. Ideas appear to the man who refuses to quit, as if the universe itself tests endurance before granting reward. The quitter receives nothing, for he abandoned the field. The persistent man discovers opportunities disguised as obstacles, allies hidden within enemies, fortunes buried beneath failures. Rockefeller's empire endured countless attacks, legal, political, financial. Rivals schemed, governments pursued him, newspapers vilified him. Yet Rockefeller persisted. He reorganized, adapted, fought when needed, retreated when wise, but never surrendered. His persistence transformed oil into gold, opposition into dominance. Without persistence, his fortune would have vanished under the first storm. Persistence transforms ridicule into respect. At first, the world mocks the dreamer. As he persists, it grows curious. When he endures defeats and continues, it begins to wonder. At last, when success appears, the same world that mocked now applauds, declaring him genius. The difference was not talent nor luck, but persistence. Remember, every fortune, every discovery, every triumph was pursued by men who persisted when others quit. Columbus faced mutiny, yet sailed on. Lincoln faced defeat after defeat, yet pressed forward to presidency. Franklin endured ridicule for his experiments, yet persisted to harness lightning. Every step of progress is written in the persistence of men. Persistence demands faith, but faith is strengthened by persistence. The more you endure, the more you believe in your power. The more you believe, the longer you endure. It is a circle of strength. Fear breaks it. Persistence completes it. Once the habit is formed, nothing, neither ridicule, failure, nor delay, can conquer the persistent man. Affirm again, I will persist. I will endure. I will triumph. My persistence is stronger than defeat, greater than fear, louder than ridicule. I persist until success is mine. Speak these words as you face obstacles, and your subconscious will respond with courage, your imagination with solutions, your allies with support, until persistence secures victory. Therefore, I say, persistence is the hammer that breaks stones, the chisel that shapes destiny, the fire that tempers steel. Without it, you remain fuel, laboring for another's gain. With it, you become fire, burning with purpose, forging your own fortune. Cultivate persistence, and no obstacle can withstand you. No man ever rose to enduring greatness alone. The solitary dreamer may imagine himself strong, but his strength is small compared with the power born of harmony between minds. One man is fuel. Many in harmony are fire. The principle of the mastermind is the multiplication of courage, intelligence, and imagination, producing force no single man could summon. A mastermind is not a crowd. It is not mere association. It is a union of two or more minds in perfect harmony, working toward a definite aim. Discord destroys it. Harmony magnifies it. When men align in spirit and purpose, a third invisible force appears, a greater intelligence than any one of them, a power that guides and strengthens all. Andrew Carnegie confessed that he owed his fortune not solely to his own genius, but to his mastermind of advisors, partners, and specialists. He gathered men of superior knowledge, united them in harmony, and directed their combined energy towards steel. Alone, he could have built nothing. United, they built an empire that transformed a nation. Thomas Edison was hailed as a solitary genius, yet he surrounded himself with associates, engineers, and thinkers. His laboratory at Menlo Park was a mastermind in action. Ideas flowed, merged, clashed, and harmonized until invention after invention appeared. Edison's name is remembered, but behind it was the invisible power of the mastermind. The drifter despises cooperation. He envies others, quarrels with neighbors, distrusts partners. He insists on going alone and thereby remains weak. The decisive man seeks allies, values counsel, and surrounds himself with those who supplement his weaknesses. He knows that harmony multiplies his force, while solitude confines it. The drifter burns alone. The master ignites others. A true mastermind requires harmony. Two men united in suspicion, jealousy, or selfishness cannot create it. Discord nullifies power. But when minds unite in mutual faith, loyalty, and definite purpose, the mastermind emerges. This invisible power supplies ideas, courage, and resources beyond the sum of the parts. It is as real as electricity, unseen, but undeniable. Carnegie declared that his greatest asset was not money, but men bound together in harmony, inspired by a common aim. He knew that wealth may vanish, but the mastermind endures. The man who commands a loyal, harmonious group commands wealth itself, for nothing can withstand the united force of many directed by one purpose. The mastermind also strengthens persistence. Alone, a man may falter under ridicule or delay. Surrounded by allies, he is lifted when weak, encouraged when doubtful, sustained when weary. His persistence becomes theirs, their courage becomes his. Thus the mastermind protects against surrender, transforming individuals into a fortress of endurance. Even spiritual strength is multiplied. The mastermind tunes minds to higher vibration, opening the channel to infinite intelligence more easily than one mind alone. Great flashes of inspiration often arise in such councils, ideas no one member could claim. The mastermind is the medium through which infinite intelligence speaks most clearly. Affirm, I attract allies of power, purpose, and faith. Together we multiply strength and rise beyond chains. Alone I am limited, but with my mastermind I command empires. Speak this daily until your subconscious begins drawing to you men and women whose spirit aligns with yours. For faith and definiteness attract allies as surely as magnets draw iron. Look again at Rockefeller. He did not act alone. His partners, specialists, financiers, and organizers formed a mastermind that controlled oil. When attacked, they counseled together, strategized together, and triumphed together. No court, no competitor, no government could match their unity. His fortune was the product not of one man, but of many in harmony. Contrast the solitary laborer. He resents others, distrusts colleagues, quarrels with neighbors. He guards his little knowledge, fearing theft. He remains alone and therefore weak. He labors for another, and his strength enriches men who understood cooperation. His envy and suspicion are chains heavier than iron, for they prevent him from joining the mastermind that could set him free. The mastermind is not limited to business. Marriage may be a mastermind if harmony reigns. Two united in faith, love, and purpose create strength that multiplies fortune, protects against fear, and inspires achievement. But discord in the home destroys more dreams than poverty ever could. Harmony is the key, whether between 2 or 20. Form your mastermind deliberately. Choose men of integrity, faith, and definiteness. Avoid drifters, cynics, and complainers. One discordant member poisons the whole. Unite upon a definite purpose. Meet regularly. Share ideas openly. Encourage loyalty. As you persist, you will feel the invisible presence, the greater intelligence guiding your union. This is the mastermind in action. Infinite intelligence itself seems to respond to the mastermind. Ideas appear in such gatherings that no one man could have conceived. Plans crystallize, courage surges, strength multiplies. This is not accident, but law. Where harmony reigns, power flows. Where discord dwells, power dies. Harmony is the price, power is the reward. Affirm again, I attract to myself men of vision, faith, and courage. We unite in harmony. We draw upon infinite intelligence. We multiply our force. Together we build empires. Speak this until you believe, for belief attracts the very allies you seek. The drifter attracts complainers. The definite attract builders. Consider again Charles Schwab. He was not only decisive and imaginative, he inspired loyalty. Men followed him because he created harmony. His mastermind with Carnegie and others produced U.S. Steel, a colossus of industry. Alone, he could not have commanded such power. With his mastermind, he harnessed the force of thousands. The mastermind protects against fear. Alone, a man trembles before obstacles. Surrounded by allies, he grows bold. Their faith becomes his faith. Their courage strengthens his courage. Their vision expands his vision. No fear can long withstand the combined strength of many united in definite purpose. Fear thrives in solitude, dies in harmony. Therefore, I say, escape the prison of solitude. Do not imagine yourself sufficient alone. Seek allies, form councils, create harmony. Direct your combined power toward your definite chief aim. For no man was ever meant to remain fuel for another's fire, but neither was he meant to burn alone. The mastermind is the furnace in which true empires are forged. Freedom is not given by governments, employers, or benefactors. It is seized by the man who masters his own mind. To be free is not to drift idly, nor to live without labor, but to command one's thoughts, one's money, and one's purpose. True freedom is disciplined power, self-directed effort, and harmony with infinite intelligence. Most men mistake wage earning for freedom. They say, "I have a job, therefore I am secure." Yet they remain chained to fear of dismissal, fear of bills, fear of poverty. A man who cannot cease working tomorrow without terror is not free. He is a servant bound by invisible cords of dependence. Wages may feed the body, but they enslave the spirit. Freedom begins when a man chooses his definite purpose. Until then, he drifts, following paths laid by others, chained to customs and commands. Purpose makes him sovereign. With aim in view, he directs his imagination, decision, persistence, and faith toward its attainment. He ceases to be fuel and becomes fire, burning by his own will. Edison was free not because he had wealth, but because he obeyed no master but his vision. Ford was free not because he owned factories, but because he dared to decide his own course. Carnegie was free not because of millions, but because he refused to live by wages. Freedom is not riches alone. It is the power to command life by purpose. True riches are more than money. They are independence of thought, peace of mind, harmony in relationships, mastery of fear, and the ability to shape destiny. Money is essential, for without it, man is not secure. Yet money alone is slavery if earned without purpose. Freedom requires riches of the soul as well as riches of the purse. The 6 ghosts of fear are the enemies of freedom. Fear of poverty keeps men obedient. Fear of criticism keeps them silent. Fear of ill health robs them of strength. Fear of loss of love chains them to compromise. Fear of old age persuades them to settle. Fear of death paralyzes their courage. To be free, a man must cast out fear. Faith is the ally of freedom. It fills the place fear once occupied. It inspires bold action, sustains persistence, and opens the channel to infinite intelligence. No free man is faithless. He believes in his aim, in his power, in his destiny. Faith is the flag of freedom, waving over every victory of the spirit. Freedom requires imagination. Without it, man remains a prisoner to what is. With it, he pictures what may be and dares to create it. The slave says, "This is the way of the world." The free man says, "I will shape a new world." Imagination is the architect of liberty, the workshop in which chains are melted and new paths drawn. Decision marks the boundary between slavery and freedom. The undecided man obeys commands, serves masters, waits for approval. The decided man issues commands, chooses masters, acts without waiting. Decision is sovereignty in action. Each bold choice breaks a link of bondage. Each hesitation forges a new chain. Persistence is the safeguard of freedom, for liberty once won may be lost if neglected. The persistent man defends his purpose daily, endures obstacles, and refuses to retreat. Freedom is not secured in a single act, but in continued vigilance. Just as nations must guard liberty, so must individuals persist in protecting their independence of thought. The mastermind sustains freedom. No man can remain free long if surrounded by drifters, cynics, and slaves of fear. Allies of courage, faith, and definiteness are essential. Harmony multiplies power and shields against weakness. A mastermind of free men is impregnable, while solitude leaves even the bold vulnerable to doubt. Freedom is responsibility. To be free is to accept full command of one's life. The drifter blames employers, governments, fate. The free man accepts no excuses. He says, "If I fail, it is by my weakness. If I succeed, it is by my effort. Responsibility is the price of liberty." Those unwilling to pay it remain slaves. History remembers not the complainers, but the creators. Lincoln, Edison, Ford, Carnegie, Rockefeller, all were born in obscurity, bound by poverty, yet they claimed freedom through definiteness, faith, imagination, decision, persistence, and mastermind. Their lives prove that chains may be broken, that even the humblest may rise if he dares to seize freedom. Affirm, I am not fuel, I am fire, I am not servant, I am master, I am not drifting, I am definite, I am not fearful, I am faithful, I am not bound, I am free. Speak these words daily until they penetrate the subconscious. For freedom begins in thought, grows in belief, and manifests in action. Do not imagine freedom distant. It begins the moment you claim it. Each day lived by your own purpose, each decision made in faith, each act of persistence is freedom already unfolding. The chains weaken with every step. The prison door opens as soon as you refuse to drift. Freedom is not someday. It is today if you choose. The wealthy have used men as fuel because most men never awaken. They drift, they fear, they hesitate, they quit, they envy, they complain. The wealthy smile, for the engines of their empires are fed by such fuel. But the moment you awaken, when desire burns, faith rises, imagination creates, decision acts, persistence endures, you cease to be their servant. I declare to you, you were never born to be fuel. You were born to be fire. You were not meant to die in harness, but to command your destiny. The choice lies before you daily, to drift in fear or to live in definiteness, to surrender to criticism or to command with faith, to labor as servant or to master your own fortune. Freedom is not gift. Freedom is conquest. It is won by thought, belief, decision, persistence, and harmony. Claim it and you live as master. Neglect it and you perish as slave. The world bows not to drifters, but to men of definite purpose. Infinite intelligence aids not the fearful, but the faithful. Freedom awaits not tomorrow, but now.